All right, we're recording. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our student ministry training. It's October 22nd, 2020, and we're excited. I have a friend of mine. His name is Zach Popp. Zach was in my youth group. He is a placement and career specialist. Zach is from Mid-State Technical College in Wisconsin Rapids. Zach was, as I mentioned, a student in my student ministry, and we're privileged to have him share his 11 years of experience in higher education in this field. He started as a recruiter. I'm trying to admit everybody as I'm saying this introduction here. He started as a recruiter at a small private college where he was exposed to students who were at the beginning of their journey in making career and college decisions. Over the last 8 years, he has worked in various capacities as a learning coordinator, regional campus manager, director of recruitment, adjunct instructor, and most recently as the dean of enrollment strategy at the Mid-State Technical College. He's gained significant knowledge related to what helps drive students to be successful in college, and also what factors they should be considering in making college and career choices. He has spent thousands of hours discussing college and career possibilities with students, and giving perspective as a Christian has helped shape his approach in giving the most valuable guidance. Excited to have Zach with us this morning. And I think before we get started, we're just going to do a quick around. What I'm going to do is have everybody mute themselves, but I want everyone to quick introduce where you're from and how many years, maybe where you're at, what's your role, and how many years you've been doing it. Matt, you want to go first?
Yes, I do. I was just multitasking, Rob. Sorry about that. I am Matt. I'm from Marshfield, Wisconsin, Cornerstone Church, youth and family pastor, and I'm in my 6th year there.
Excellent. Nate Palmer.
Nate, I'm in Sparta, and I am a youth and children's and pseudo-executive pastor, and I've been here for almost 8 years, and so I'm like 10 and a half, or no, more than that, 11 and a half total in ministry.
Ryan Jinks.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you. My name is Ryan. I'm at Terrace Shores Church, which is by the Princeton Green Lake area, central part of Wisconsin. I have been here 19 years.
Yeah, he is definitely our senior member here, although he looks like he's about 23. So, Christy, one of our newcomers from Platteville.
Hi, I'm Christy Kavicki, and I am at Platteville Community Church. I started there in September. I've been volunteering through youth ministry at different churches from Tennessee and Iowa and Wisconsin since 2001.
Yeah, you're filling big shoes in Jason Sass, but I think you'll do great.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating. They had their farewell service for him Sunday, and it was very nice. Wow. I was quarantined for that.
Oh, no.
So.
Well, speaking of quarantined, Ryan, are you out of quarantine?
That's right, Rob. I did or did not, but most likely did have the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus in the earlier part of the fall, and I'm feeling great. I had to go out and get it as a leader. I had to lead that way, so I just went after it. And I've been in Green Bay, and I've been there for about 5 years, going on my 6th year.
Excellent. Leif Erickson, do you have corona?
Nope, I'm good. I think I am in Madison, Black Hawk Church. Been here 13 years, overseeing middle school and high school ministry here.
Excellent. Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh. Antigo Community Church up in Antigo, Wisconsin. I've been doing in Antigo for about 4 years, about 8 years altogether.
Excellent. Blake Burton, I know you're fairly new. How long have you been where you're at?
I've been here. I'm at Appleton Community Evangelical Free Church in Appleton, Wisconsin, and I've been here since February. So I've been on a year, coming up on a year soon.
Nice. Let's go to Marcus Knight for good morning, Marcus.
Hey, I'm Marcus Knight from Good News Church in Mosinee. This is my 2nd year.
Excellent. Michael Yankee.
Hey guys, so I'm Mike at Abbotsford Abbey Free Church. I've been here for coming up close to 10 years now, 18 years in youth ministry.
All right. I always say your name wrong. So is it Tricia? Tricia, remind me again. I'm sorry.
It's Trisha.
Thank you. I thought it was.
Yeah, no problem. We're from Face Free in Stanley. And I got Jim and Rhonda here, if you can see them. I don't know. I don't even see where I'm at.
Hi, Jim and Rhonda. Nice to have you.
I've been doing this for about 5 years, that we're guessing. Rhonda's been doing it for 8 years, and Jim's on the floor. And Jim's about 4 years. And we're all volunteers.
Well, and I was just going to say, you guys are all volunteers. You're my heroes, because volunteers make up all of our ministries. And so, some of us get the privilege of getting paid for this, but many of us are volunteers. I'm a volunteer now too, in a 6th grade role in Wausau. Last night's discussion was, what's something unique? And a kid he says, when I was in kindergarten, I kissed a girl on the bus. There we go. That was my small group last night. That was great. I could tell you more about that later. I was telling Zach, interesting stuff with 6th grade boys, as you know. Tony Nord.
Hey guys, yeah, Tony Nord at Maranatha Evangelical Free Church in Rice Lake, Wisconsin, up in the northwest part of the state. Been here for 8.5 years.
Good. Bo Perkins, I see you have somebody with you.
Yeah, Rob, this is our new director of family ministries, Ben Challey. And so I thought I'd introduce him to everybody here, since you may or may not see him on occasion.
Great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet all of you.
Yeah, Bo, send me your information. Love to have it for the district and stuff. So that'd be great. Tell us about how long you guys have been there.
So I've been here since June 15th, and I'm still the new guy around here, I guess, but it's been good so far, and I'm excited to be here for sure.
Yeah, and I'm working on year 3, started in July. And so we're relatively new into things, but things seem to be going pretty well.
Great. Let's go to JD Elgin.
Hey guys, yeah, JD here in Watoma, between I-39 and Oshkosh. I've been in this position for 7 years. It's my 8th school year, so.
Excellent, good. Well, I see Park Hills is on, and I'm guessing, is it the Alex Eunice?
It is. I'm got 3 sick kids today, so I'm just going to be listening in. But I'm Alex Eunice, Park Hills Church in Freeport, Illinois, and I've been here for 1.5 years.
Excellent. Good, Alex. Good to hear your voice. I've got 2 phone numbers on here. I'm going to say the phone numbers and let me know if you're one of these. Tell us who you are. 715-547-3495. Who's that? You'll have to unmute yourself, or I can unmute you. Oh, maybe I can't. The other one is 615-962-4102. Anyone want to claim that one?
Good morning, Rob. It's Jamie Wilhelm. Hi, everybody.
Hey. Oh, thanks, Jamie. Jamie is our administrative
number.
Yes, it's your Tennessee. Jamie, tell them your role in the district.
Yeah, I just come up on 1 year in October of just doing some connection and events. So communications kind of falls under that. So I'm glad to be here and hear some of you guys and learn more about you.
Excellent. Well, good. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for humoring me for some introductions, and I'm sure many people will be listening. Well, I've already done the introduction for Zach. Let me open in prayer, and then we'll jump in. And I'm excited about Zach really giving us a lot of insight into this idea of career choice and schooling and all of that. Let's just pray. Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the faces that we see here, and for those in student ministry in the Forest Lakes District. We're just grateful for the connection we all have. I pray at this difficult time where we're all dealing with COVID, with issues of racism, with issues of the election. I'm thankful we can be distracted a little bit today to think about our students and how to give them help in the area of career choice and schooling. And I thank you for Zach. And I just thank you for his ministry to his family. And we look forward to hearing from him in this time. It's in your name we pray, Jesus. Amen. Well, Zach, it's all yours. I'm excited. Zach wants to do some interacting with us, and he's got a PowerPoint presentation. So take it away, my friend.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, well, nice to meet you all, and thanks for letting me jump on this morning. And hopefully you find it valuable. Yeah, I'm just looking at my presentation here. Let me hit my present button. Let's see here. There we go. Okay. So I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about myself because Pastor Rob already gave me a really nice introduction. But just real quickly, yeah, I've been in higher education, actually coming up here on 11 years, various capacities. I worked as a recruiter, learning coordinator, campus manager, director, instructor, and currently I'm the dean of enrollment strategy at Mid-State Technical College. So I know I know some of you are at churches that are in our district. I heard Marshfield, and there might have been another one there too. So you're probably familiar with Mid-State, but if you're not familiar, we're based out of Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. We have campuses in Stevens Point, Marshfield, and Adams. I'm also a father of 7. Over here, I put a little picture of my family. So I have 4 girls and 3 boys. And I was just sharing with Pastor Rob, they're in between the ages of soon to be 2 and 16. So, and as of last week, I now have 2 teenage girls in my house. So that's really exciting. And I have to say that they are just like destroying all the stereotypes that that people typically have about teenage girls, because they are just stellar young ladies. So can't say enough about them. Just one last thing I mentioned real quick here, I got put on the list, just fun fact. I'm also technically an inventor. I hold a patent on a green wall panel. So a different way to construct the walls of buildings. I actually just obtained a patent as of this last August. So that's just kind of a fun fact. Doesn't relate to anything we're talking about today, but I wanted to throw that in there just so you can get to know me a little bit more. So enough about me. I really want to dive into this and kind of frame it up by giving you some statistics related to the future of the workforce and the economy that students who are in school right now are going to be dealing with by the time they get to graduation and potentially seeking college and career options. And before I get too deep into this, I should say too that if you have questions throughout this can be informal. I think there's a raise your hand feature. You can either do that or you can throw questions in the comments. We definitely will have time at the end if you have questions. Like I said, this is a group size that's really manageable, where we can be more informal and you can just ask questions throughout. So feel free to do that at any point in time. But like I said, I kind of wanted to frame this up and give you some statistics related to the future of the workforce and the economy. Because some of these might be shocking. You may have heard some of these, but some you may not have heard. So I wanted to share this because the more you know about what the future looks like, the better you can then potentially guide the students that you work with. So there's that education piece that is really critical. So let's talk about some statistics here. And I made a little bit of an error because I kept all of my statistics pretty focused to Wisconsin's economy. And I realized I think I heard there's one of you, did I hear Illinois, Freeport, Illinois, I think I heard. So, but just know that Wisconsin and Illinois economies are pretty similar. So there's not huge differences there. But 54% of the jobs in the future will require a technical education. And that's actually pretty common nationwide too. The statistic doesn't deviate a whole lot from that. So that's something that people aren't always aware of, is that the majority of the future jobs will require at least a technical college education. And here's 2 statistics related to what employers are looking for. So in an analysis of 25 common skill sets today, researchers found that by 2030, the demand for social and emotional skills will grow across all industries by 26%. So you may have heard of the term soft skills. That's really what this relates to, is that the employers, and we hear this all the time, at the technical college level, we have what we call advisory committee meetings, where we meet with employers who they help guide our curriculum then through, and they inform us on changes and updates that should be happening within our curriculum for any given program. And when I attend these meetings, that's just the common theme that I continually hear, is that they need to have workers who have an increased level of soft skills. And we see that in the statistics too, and that kind of relates to this next stat I have here too, is that 19% is the percent increased demand for higher cognitive skills. So such as creativity, critical thinking, decision-making, complex information processing. So, again, those skills are essentially soft skills, and they all kind of go hand in hand. And I'm mentioning these things because these are the things that are really hard to teach in a classroom. People generally have to gain these things through other interactions, whether it's with peers, whether it's in a church setting, whether it's in a family setting. They really can only gain in this area substantially through all of those other interactions, through things that happen outside of the classroom. Because even at the college level, we're always talking about, well, how can we get students up a notch in terms of their soft skills? And it's just hard. It's just really hard to do. And this last statistic, and this one, again, you may have heard this, but it's pretty shocking. So 65% of children now entering primary school will hold a job that doesn't currently exist. And it's staggering that we're really on the verge of the fourth industrial revolution. Some of you might have heard about this term. It's called Industry 4.0. So throughout the history of industrial revolutions, we've really been through three. We've been through three industrial revolutions essentially, and we're right on the verge of the fourth. And what that looks like is kind of the convergence of all of these things that are really big right now. That includes AI, automation, data, like big data. So harvesting all of these things, and they're all kind of converging together. And because of that, there's jobs that are being created today that just never existed in the future, and that people really couldn't have conceived of existing. So it's a tough time actually to be trying to guide young people because of that statistic. 65% of children are going to hold a job in the future that it doesn't even exist right now. So it's really kind of staggering. And I'm gonna kind of hit pause right now in my presentation because I should give a disclaimer. Obviously I work for a technical college, so I am naturally biased. I do favor technical college education because that's where I work. However, I tried to put together this presentation not as a dean, but as a parent, because I am a parent, and I'm always thinking about, okay, if I didn't work for a technical college, how would I still be willfully guiding my children? And I'm trying to wear that hat, or I did wear that hat when I put together this presentation. I tried to not be too slanted towards technical education. However, I know that at the same time, I can't eliminate that bias. I'm still a little bit biased. So I just needed to kind of give that disclaimer that I'm a big proponent of technical education. So I'm going to move on here. Another thing that I felt like is worth mentioning, and it's already quiz time. So I have a little bit of a quiz, and what I want you to do with this is just to look at each one of these three questions. And then if you have a pen and paper handy, you can jot it down, or you can just note it in your head. I won't ask you to give answers. This is really just for your own knowledge, just to see how much you know related to the student debt crisis, because we are on the verge of a crisis in America when it comes to student debt. So yeah, anyway, if you could just take a moment, you can note your answer in your head, you can write it down, it's totally up to you. But first question I have here is, what is the total student loan debt in the US right now? Is it A, 750 million, B, 345 billion, or C, 1.6 trillion. So you can either jot it down. I see someone saying a C. Okay. Well, you're giving the answer. You're giving the answer, Bo. That's okay. It's good. It's good. So next question is the total debt. This total debt equates to how much per college attendee? Is it 75,000, 33,000, or C, 15,000? Again, you can give the answer if you want, but or at least note it in your head or write it down. And then last question I have here is what financial threshold, I'm sorry, this is blocking the screen a little bit. Okay, what financial threshold of annual income statistically maximizes happiness? Is it 150,000 a year, 100,000 a year, or 75,000 a year? All right, so now it's answer time. So hopefully you all thought about this and you got an answer written down, or like I said, at least in your head. So for this question here, the total student loan debt right now, Bo, you were right. It's 1.6 trillion. Yes, 1.6 trillion. So right now in America, the student loan debt, the cumulative amount, it actually is greater than the total mortgage debt in America. So people owe more on their college education than they do for housing in the US. That's staggering. I think about, I obviously have a mortgage and I have a home, and I couldn't imagine how much more stressful it would be if I owed more on my education than I did for my home. I think that's, we're kind of setting up people to be, to start off life on the wrong foot. No debt, if you can avoid it at all costs, it's a good thing. I think we can almost all agree on that. So for this question, the total debt equates to how much per college attendee? Thankfully, it's not yet 75,000, but it is 33,000. And keep in mind that that's a number for every college attendee, whether they've obtained a degree or not. So there's people that are factored into this that maybe have attended for one semester and dropped out. But the average student loan debt right now is $33,000. So that's a lot. It's a lot of money. So last question here. So I got a question now. Oh no, we got a person that's looking to enter. Oh, thanks, Pastor Rob. So the financial threshold of annual income that statistically maximizes happiness. This one is actually C. It's $75,000 a year. So a lot of people find that kind of interesting because you tend to think like, okay, your quality of life is just going to continually improve as you make more, right? I know we don't. That's not the end goal, is to make as much money as possible. But you do tend to think like, okay, the more you make, life is going to be easier. You're not going to worry about money as much. You're going to be happier. It's actually not true. There is a sweet spot there. You peak at 75,000. And that's nationwide. It's really kind of interesting. It makes me think of that old adage of money can't buy happiness. Well, when you look at the statistics, it's actually true. It really can't. Once people start making more than that, it either plateaus, their level of happiness plateaus, or it even starts to go down a little bit. But there's like a line of old song, right? More money, more problems. I don't know. I'm something like that. And it's obviously kind of true. And I say this because, I think sometimes students, they overemphasize that. They think, okay, I'm gonna go into a degree that I can just make the most amount of money. And I think that they need to be told that, there is a sweet spot there. And the sweet spot is, enough to have your needs met. If a person can make enough to have their needs met, they're generally more content and happy with life. And I was actually just thinking about this the other day, and my wife and I were having a conversation because, we're talking about, if we had a child who wanted to be, let's say, a doctor, would we encourage them to pursue that path? And right now, even if I had a child who I thought, okay, yes, they're plenty capable, they could go through college, and I felt confident that they could get into medical school. I don't know if I right now would necessarily encourage it because, it's a great profession. It's an honorable profession. Absolutely. We need people to be doctors. But at the same time, just from a financial perspective, pursuing college to become a doctor, you actually miss out on about $800,000 in opportunity costs. So you essentially are starting off life about $800,000 behind someone who may have pursued a different path. Maybe they went into IT, or they went into something that else was a lower cost college degree, but still was a relatively good paying job. So that, now, will a doctor eventually make up $800,000 throughout the course of their career? Yeah, they should, hopefully, but it's a long-term commitment. So it's really a matter of, is someone willing to sacrifice in the short term for the long-term benefit? So
yeah. Hey, Zach, let me ask you a question in the middle of that. So what you're saying really, I would imagine the doctor's the one that borrows the most money when they go to school too, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I can't remember what the average loan debt is for a typical doctor once they finish their residency, but it's hundreds of thousands. It's hundreds of thousands. And when I say opportunity cost, that also factors in the years where they've had no income. Essentially, someone that's pursuing becoming a doctor, they're not going to have any income. I shouldn't say any income. They're not going to have a doctor's income until they're at least in their mid to late 20s, more likely late 20s at best. So again, and this isn't me saying we shouldn't be encouraging people to be doctors. It's me saying that the cost of college has been increasing exponentially. So it's becoming a tougher discussion. It's more of a, if you're looking at it strictly financially, it's something that you need to look at it more holistically. It's not a guarantee that it's automatically going to be a great financial decision. So, all right. Any questions on the student debt crisis? Did anyone get all three of those questions right? No one got all three?
Hey, Zach, could you, my internet dropped over here, so I missed the three answers.
You missed the three answers? Okay.
Yeah, our internet dropped at church, but I'm back on. So could you just quickly say what the three answers were?
Yeah, sure. No sweat. So for the first one, the total student loan debt is 1.6 trillion. So C.
Mm-hmm.
For this question here, total debt per college attendee, it's 33,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, the financial threshold to maximize happiness is 75,000.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of funny when I saw this statistic here, I almost said to my wife, I'm like, maybe I should, stop trying to advance in my career. Like, I don't want to make more than 75,000, I guess. But then I realized I got 7 kids. I'm a little bit different. I got a lot of people I got to take care of. So, of course there's always outliers, but for the average person, 75,000 is the amount. So how did you do there, Matt?
I listened to a lot of financial stuff, but I don't know, I was still kind of perplexed. It doesn't surprise me, especially the first one, that the answer is that. It seems outrageous, but it doesn't surprise me, and then the happiness factor, of course, everybody would probably think A, but it totally makes sense that it's C. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep.
It looks like Trisha got them all right too, she says on the chat, but she says she has a senior in high school, or senior in college, I don't know which, but senior.
Nice. Well, good for you, Trisha. That's fantastic. So some of you were on top of these things. So that's
and I see Bo mentioned that there's NYU gives free college tuition to its students, all students who are in the doctor field, that is. And then Ryan asked about the opportunity cost, which I think you covered. So good.
Yes.
High school is what Trisha says. Senior. That's why she got them all right. Good.
Yep.
Thanks, Zach. Keep going.
Yeah, no sweat. And now that you said that, you're right. Yeah, NYU is doing a free tuition program for those pursuing becoming a medical doctor. That's right. So those types of things thankfully, there's options like that exist. And that makes me think of another opportunity that I'm going to throw out there right now, because I'm going to forget if I don't mention it. And I got to slide this into a link somewhere in this presentation so that other people can access it. But there's another program that's called the First Year Free program, and it's through Modern States. And you can just Google that, First Year Free. And it's an excellent program. It's this nonprofit institution. They're called Modern States, where essentially they put together free online classes for someone who wants to pursue college and get their essentially a year's worth of college credits for free. And it's all through what's called a CLEP examination. It's a really cool program. Actually, my 16-year-old daughter has been doing this for a year, and she already has college credits, and they're free. It's amazing. And the way it works is essentially you take this online class. It's totally self-paced. And hopefully this shows that I'm not totally biased to the technical college system, because I'm promoting another college's opportunity. But yeah, it's all online, and it's self-paced. There's a whole bunch of different classes that you can select from, but every single class that they offer is something that is very common in most colleges. So after you complete their online class, then they actually pay, and this is usually only like $100 cost anyway, but they pay for you to take what's called a CLEP examination. It's essentially a test out exam. And then there's a ton of colleges like mid-state and even the university system, UW-Madison, UW-La Crosse, even Ivy League schools. They'll accept credits, or they'll grant credit based off of how someone did on a CLEP examination. So that is a wonderful opportunity. And for anyone who knows that they want college and want to pursue it as affordably as possible, I really highly recommend this program. Like I said, it's called the First Year Free Program, and it's through Modern States. So yeah, my daughter already has gotten 3 free college credits. She did that when she was a sophomore. Now that she's a junior, she's going to try to get 6 credits. So by the time she graduates from high school, she might already have more than a full semester worth of college done, and maybe even potentially closer to a year's worth. So yeah, that's my plug for the Modern States First Year Free Program, because it's so excellent. This is something I really felt was worth mentioning. And these are some statistics that you probably have heard, but if you haven't, I need to mention it, because this is one thing that really just weighs heavily on my heart, because I've seen it and I've witnessed it just time and time again. But I just need to say that it is very, very, very hard for a Christian teen to keep their faith in the university system. And you all are probably aware of this. You've probably heard this. In general, the university system is hostile to the Christian faith. And I think that's reflected in the statistics. It's not even something that we can, we need to guess on. We know that 70% of Christian teens entering college walk away from the faith by the end of their freshman year. So in just 1 year. So that means it doesn't even matter if they've had 18 or 19 years of being raised in a Christian household. 70% of them will walk away from that faith within a matter of a year of being in the university system. That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. So my advice, and this is the same thing I would tell my children, and this is what I desire for my children, if they desire a career that requires a university education, I need to make sure that they are fully prepared to walk across or walk into enemy territory, because that's literally what it is. And to be honest, this is, I can't even necessarily say that the technical college system is way better. I mean, I can anecdotally say I think we're better in the sense that we don't have as much room for all of the extra things. We focus more on training people to learn a skill. And for that reason, because we are so focused on, okay, this person wants to be a barber, let's train them to be a barber. Or this person wants to be a nurse, we're going to focus on these nursing skills. There isn't as much opportunity to insert dogma into our curriculum. But at the same time, I don't know what the statistic is. So I'm just going to be real honest. I don't know how many people go into a technical college and then lose their faith by the end of the year. But my guess is it's substantially less, because while we are a secular education in the university system, we're not a secular education that is generally hostile to the Christian faith. And so this is really just kind of my plug for a Christian education, a private Christian education, or potentially a trade school, technical school, a community college where, you know, a parent can still remain involved in their student's life. I just think that I would be remiss if I didn't mention this, that I didn't, you know, make people aware that if you're encouraging students to go into the university system, there's a large chance that they will potentially lose their faith. And that's, there's no career that is worth losing your faith over. And just this statistic here, liberal professors outnumber conservatives at a ratio of 12-1. And I'm sure many of you have went through college. And again, this is not to say there isn't a role for university education. There is. However, if you've been through college, you've probably had encounters with people who were specifically professors who were hostile to the Christian faith. I know I did. You know, I had a lot of you know, professors who I had to butt heads with. So, and I'm very thankful that I don't want to say I made it through unscathed, but I made it through my university education while remaining a Christian, because that's becoming kind of rare. So,
hey, Zach.
Yeah.
Could you give us where you got these two statistics from? Because I agree. In fact, I've even heard the number might even be higher for liberal professors. I've heard as high as 48-1, but I know it's outnumbered like crazy. And also the 70%. We've heard a ton of statistics in this area. And I'm just curious, do you remember where you got these from?
Yeah, you know what? I can get you the links. I don't remember specifically off the top of my head, but I'll.
Okay.
I understand.
Yep, that'd be great.
Yeah, you're right. Because I've seen in certain areas, yeah, that ratio is even higher. It really depends on the university. I think this might have been factoring in all colleges across the whole U.S., but you're right. In certain areas of the country, it's even higher. You know, out at UC Berkeley, this is probably 100-1. So, yeah. Okay, so I want to kind of transition here now, and just being mindful of the time I'm at, and into talking more about some of the tangible things that you can do to help students, because really that's kind of what this was about. And I need to also say that students really do need mentors. And I was sharing with Pastor Rob even before this started that I had very engaged parents. You know, I grew up in a Christian home. My parents are very loving, very engaged. At the same time, they weren't really fully equipped to help guide me through my college and career options. So I think that's why it's just beneficial for students to have multiple mentors, people who can, help ask the right questions. And I'll tell you what those questions are in the next slide. And to come alongside them and just be an additional person to help nurture them. Ideally, it would be parents, but every parent can use a little help. They can use some supplementation, that's for sure. And I had a note here. This is just something that I've noticed, and it's not even something that I've noticed. I've heard this from, tons of people that are in my similar role, that parents have transitioned from being helicopter parents to lawnmower parents. Has anyone heard this term, lawnmower parent? Oh, okay, gotcha. So a helicopter parent is just a parent who hovers, that they're the one, they're there with their child and hovering over them, and making sure that they're watching everything that they're doing. A lawnmower parent is a parent who takes control and completely clears the path for their students or for their child. That's what we're seeing more of is parents who are really enabling their kids. So what we do with that is we need to make sure that when we're given the opportunities to empower children and have them take responsibility, that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it's probably not happening as much as it used to in their household. Their parents are more likely clearing the path for them than they are encouraging their children to do things on their own and take personal responsibility. So we have kind of an epidemic of lawnmower parents. And just to back that up a little bit more, in the technical college system here in Wisconsin, we do what's called a parent perception survey. We do it every 5 years, and really we do this to try to gauge parents' perceptions of their children, higher education, technical college education, all those things. And between 2015 and 2020, we saw this huge shift just in 5 years in what parents worry about when it comes to their child's college education. There's something that showed up this year in 2020 that was never on the radar in the past. And it was this: parents are now more concerned than ever that their child will be able to hack it in college. That was never on the radar prior. That's brand new. It's really interesting. So we have kind of this odd dynamic, because we have parents who are doing everything for their kids, completely clearing the path. But then on the back end, I think they're recognizing that they did that, and they're now worried, oh shoot, now I don't know if my kid's going to be able to hack it. So it's an odd dynamic, because part of me just wants to like say to those parents, like, well, stop doing everything for them. Stop being the lawnmower parent. But that's hard. It's hard because you want to see your kids succeed. You want to, you want them to flourish, but they've just kind of overstepped their bounds, and now it's to the point of enabling. So I think for you, as someone who engages with students as in a church setting or as a youth leader, I think you can just encourage personal responsibility and empower them to do as much on their own as possible. At the same time, coming alongside them and stepping in and helping where help is truly needed, but don't overhelp. I guess that's kind of the message I'm trying to get across there. I'm going to switch here to the next slide. So here are some questions that I think are really helpful, because I think that's the biggest thing, is if you can at least start asking these questions of the students that you engage with, that alone will be really helpful, because it's likely that no one else is asking them these questions. There's, and I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, but their high school counselors, if they have one, are more often than not, to be honest, I don't want to say overworked, but they have a lot of students who they work with, and it's really hard for them to give each individual student the attention that they need. So I think the more people who can ask them these questions, just to get them thinking, if for anything, you get them thinking, that's a good thing. So some of these you might say like, okay, yeah, duh, of course, this is a no-brainer, but maybe there's some questions here that you wouldn't have thought of. And really that's what I'm trying to do for you, is just to give you some questions that can be asked of these students to help them start thinking about what they want to do, what they'd be good at, what the next step is in their life. So the most basic one is, what are you good at? That's a great question to ask students, because you want to focus on their strengths. There's some really interesting statistics related to like how much further you get with someone if you focus on their strengths versus their weaknesses. Focus on the positives versus the negatives. Like it's way more motivating and it's way more engaging for people if you focus on their strengths, right? So that's a great question. So what are you good at? What subjects do you like? That's another good question, because a subject that a student likes right now while they're in middle school, high school, often correlates to what they would like to do in their future profession. Then, not always, because there's a little bit of this divide between what high schools actually teach and what the real world demands. But if someone says to you, oh yeah, I love my I don't know, my Phi Ed class. I love the idea of being active, and I just love being up on my feet. Well, that could give you an indication that this is a very physical person, that wouldn't do well, maybe in an office setting. So there is still some value in asking that question. Another question is, what do you enjoy doing? And by this, I mean, what do they enjoy doing in their free time? If someone is very passionate about X, whatever it is, music, it can help inform what they would enjoy doing in their profession as well. What do you like about your current job? So you'll work with students, obviously, who are working right now. And, I think about my oldest daughter. So she's 16 and she got her first job. This past summer, she started working at an ice cream and candy shop. And I just am so jealous. I just think that is such a great first job for a 16-year-old young lady. And you know, I've been kind of asking her like, oh, what do you like about it? And I've been asking her specific questions to try to get a feel for, okay, is there something from this job that she's doing right now that could translate into something she would like to do in the future? So like, just as an example, the other day she got off her shift, I picked her up and I was like, so Lily, how many sales did you have today? Because she's the only person that works in that ice cream shop. So I thought, oh, maybe she's kind of keeping track of like, you know, how many people are are coming through and how many sales she had. And she was like, I have no idea. And I was like, you don't know how many sales you had? Because that's interesting to me. I kind of have a, more of a business mindset, and I'm kind of a math guy, and that's interesting. And she was like, oh, I don't know. She's like, I don't care. And then she started telling me about this really neat conversation she had with one of the customers. And it kind of got me thinking like, okay, she doesn't care about the number. She doesn't care about the business side of it. She cares about the relationships. She cares about, how the interaction she had. So I think we may tend to have this thought that like, okay, yeah, I have a student who's flipping burgers at McDonald's, but that's not going to help inform what they want to do in the future. It could, because there's components that they may love, and then there's components of that job that they may hate. And that can help, again, inform what they would prefer to be doing long-term. So this question here is one of the better questions that I've asked of students that are undecided and are trying to figure out what they want to do. Because we've all been asked at some point in our life, what do you want to do? But that is just such a large and abstract question. It's sometimes really hard to wrap your mind around. Like, what do I want to do? Like, that's really big. But if you ask them, what problem do you want to solve? That's specific enough where they probably have thought about that more. Oftentimes students are passionate about something. Right now they see a lot of problems. They see problems in the world. They see, wherever it is, wherever they live, almost everyone has identified a problem, and they probably have thought about a problem that they would like to contribute to solving. So that can be a good indication for what they would ideally fit into in their career path. So what problem do you want to solve? That's a good question. What do you care most about? That's another good question. Oftentimes what people care about translates well into what they would be good at and what they would enjoy doing long term. So another question. Okay, I'm going to slide over.
Before you jump into the next one, Zach, just a couple of comments from our chat section, and then we'll jump back in. I know our time's going really fast, but I noticed that Bo mentioned a friend of his came out of Nina with 35 credits for college. That's good. Tony Nord has an interesting book resource related to the discussion, The Coddling of the American Mind. I've heard about that one. Good resource. Yeah. Bo Perkins mentions also, as a former high school teacher, there is a whole other set of parents who are hands off and expect the school and the church to prepare their children. I've seen that too, which is sad, because we believe that parents should be the primary spiritual provider really in their family. But I had not heard lawnmower. I had heard the helicopter parent, but not lawnmower. But boy, does that make sense, Zach. Really good.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, those are great. I'm glad people brought those up. Those are great resources. And I always appreciate other people's perspectives too. And excellent.
A couple more there too. Ryan Jinks mentioned the average college credit costs almost $600 today. That's expensive. And then Matt Korth mentioned that if you haven't read this book yet, plan to, but might be a resource you all are interested in. It's through Dave Ramsey. It sounds like it's debt-free degree book. Sounds really good. And Tony, let's see. Alex also agreed with Tony's recommendation. And then Michael said, dry cleaner parents. Can you expand on that, Michael? What does that mean? I don't know if Mike hears me, but anyway, maybe oh, there it is. Drop them off and wait for them to be fixed. There you go. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, Zach. Well, let's keep rolling and keep the comments coming in and questions, and and we'll keep going.
Yeah, great, good thoughts. And yeah, I whoever it was who mentioned that, there seems to be that everyone feels like it's someone else's responsibility. I've said for the longest time, I feel so bad for high school teachers right now, because it seems like, yeah, parents, they expect teachers to instill all of these things into their kids because, they're stretched thin, or they just feel like they're not their responsibility. And I always feel bad because there's kind of this, I don't know, there's just friction. There's friction, I feel like, between oftentimes parents and teachers, because they both feel like each other should be doing these things, and neither one of them is happening. Parent or teachers don't have the capacity to pour into these kids the way a parent should be. So it's there's just some friction there that is really unfortunate. And I think, I'm one who would always say, like you said, Pastor Rob, that we need to be encouraging parents to step up and fill these roles. It's their responsibility largely. So anyway, just continuing on here, just a few more questions that could be asked. And this one might seem kind of funny. Like, why would you ask someone where do they want to live? And I think this is just, again, kind of just based off my observations and working with students. Oftentimes, especially young people, they have this big dream of getting out of town. Especially, maybe this is because I've mostly operated in small town, rural Wisconsin communities. But a lot of kids seem to have this goal, and I want to get out of town. I call it the grass is greener on the other side syndrome, because they always have this vision, like, yeah, I'm going to go to college this place, and I'm going to move to a big city. I'm going to get out of town. The reality is that 72% of people in America live in or near the town that they grew up in. So I think that, and I mentioned this because, like, when I started off as a recruiter, and I would take students through like interest inventories, it was always a little bit tough. And I'm going to talk about interest inventories here in a little bit, because oftentimes they would recommend things for the students that had no applicability to the local economy. And I would think, like, okay, it's great that your interest inventory told you that you should be a marine biologist. However, those jobs are few and far between in Wisconsin. They exist, but it's very rare. So I think that's just something good to keep in mind, is it's okay to ask people, like, hey, where do you want to live? And it's okay to tell them, like, oh, that's great, you want to move to another city, but if that doesn't work out, if you need to have a plan B, and you move back closer to home, is there another type of job that you could foresee yourself doing, or something like that. Just another question is, who do you admire and why? Who people admire often is a good indication of what they would be interested in, what they would be good at. I think about some people who I admire. They really helped inform some of my college and career choices and some of my life paths. So that might help get people thinking about what they would want to do. And then this question, and this is just a question that I've used, especially in working with undecided students, because so often we'll get someone who would get in my office and they would say, I'm open to doing anything. I'm completely undecided. I want to start from scratch and explore all my options. And I say, okay, great. And then I'll typically ask, I know you say you're open to anything, but are there certain industries that you do not want to work in? And then even sometimes then they'll say, no, I'm open to anything. And I'll say, okay, do you want to work in a factory? And then they'll say, oh, no, I don't want to work in a factory. I'm like, okay. I'm like, you want to work in healthcare? And they'll say, oh, no, I don't want to do anything with blood. So I think it's sometimes nice to start, eliminating things that way by asking people, what do you not want to do? Is there anything for sure you don't want anything to do with? And that can help people too. So yeah, and then I just had a note here that when strengths and interests are identified, you should seek ways to help them build on those gifts by getting involved in something related right now. And I know that there's not always opportunities to do this, but I think about actually Pastor Rob, I believe, is the master at this. And I gotta give him credit, because when I started attending Highland Community Church, I was a pretty reserved fella and pretty shy. And one thing Pastor Rob found out about me is that I played the drums. And there was no chance I would have ever volunteered myself to play in the worship band. That was way outside of my comfort zone. And I don't think my parents would have even pushed me to do it either. But Pastor Rob just was always there, encouraging and nudging me along and trying to get me outside of my comfort zone. I'm very thankful for that now. At the time, I was kind of like, boy, this pastor's persistent.
Probably annoying, but you were a good drummer.
I got better. I was a pretty rough drummer when I first started, but I got better over time, and that forced me to get better. So I think as youth leaders, try to take advantage of those opportunities. If you see an opportunity for a student to get involved, whether it's with church or something in the community or whatever, be the steady encouragement and be that person that just tries to inch them out of their comfort zone. I think that's really critical, because again, that might not be happening in school. It might not be happening in their home. That's where you could potentially be a catalyst for making that happen. Okay. So I'm getting close here. I'm going to try to stick real tight, and I think we'll almost be done with the presentation piece here in a few minutes. So just a few other insights on college enrollment and future success. Talked about this earlier, but I really feel that soft skills and interpersonal skills are the game changer. Like when we're talking about setting someone up to be successful in college, that's a big one. Will someone show up on time? Will they be able to finish a project or assignment? Are they going to communicate respectfully with everyone in their class? Those are the things that are really going to set someone apart. It's those soft skills. And this is going to sound kind of funny coming from someone who works in higher education, but I actually can say this with a pretty high level of confidence, that academics are actually overrated. So this should be really encouraging for those C/D students out there, because I do really generally think that academics are kind of overrated. When I say academics, I mean people's report cards, the grades they got, the GPA that they got, those things. When it comes to setting up future success, aren't that critical. And actually, there isn't even a really strong correlation. If you look at people who are wildly successful, they weren't necessarily your A student. They weren't the valedictorians. And I wish I knew the statistic, because there is a really interesting statistic about like valedictorians and how that equates to success. And this isn't, of course, if someone's a valedictorian, that takes a lot of effort and I commend them. But however, there isn't a super strong correlation between like a person's academic success and their future success in life and career. So I just had a note here that people need to know what to think, not how to think. I have a little typo there. So I'm sorry, they need to know how to think. I said that backwards, not what to think. Because largely, and I'll admit, even at the college level, we still aren't perfect at measuring competency. It's kind of we're having information dumped on students, and then we're having them regurgitate it back out. And that's how we try to measure competency. And it's not perfect. I don't think any college has perfected this. So I think it's more critical that we work on trying to, get people to think critically. People need to know how to think, not what to think. I just want to make a quick comment here on prerequisite knowledge, because this is something that I think other people have misconceptions. They feel that, okay, in order to be successful in college, you need to make sure you have a foreign language, you need to have a calculus class, you need to make sure that you've taken, advanced English, and people, they establish these criteria and they think that, okay, someone needs to have all of this prerequisite knowledge before they get into college, right? Or in order to be successful in college. But then I like to, kind of point this out, and I'll always ask people, if you are currently a college graduate, think about what you absolutely needed to know to be successful academically in college when you first entered. And to be honest, the answer to that is not a whole lot. I would say you need to be a fairly good reader and writer. You need to have decent math skills. And when I say decent, I mean, at least algebra. But beyond that, colleges generally don't expect for you to have a high level of prerequisite knowledge. We don't expect people to come through our doors knowing advanced, trigonometry, or knowing, the history of East Asia. It's those other topics we generally expect people to not have any foundational knowledge on. We kind of expect them to start from the ground zero. And that's even the case at a university. There isn't a whole lot of prerequisite knowledge that we expect of students. So I think that, when I see students stressing out at the high school level about academics, I think it's good for them to take those things seriously and try to do their best, but don't, I would say to someone, don't lose sleep over it. Just another insight here. I think intergenerational communication is key. The structure of our society right now, it largely is not conducive to creating intergenerational communication. What I mean by that is, students in school are segregated by their ages, right? So they get a ton of peer communication and some with their teachers. But I think it's really important for people to get practice and experience with intergenerational communication. Talking to someone who's 10 years older than you, 20 years older than you, someone who is, 60 years older than you, and being able to relate to those people and being able to communicate effectively and be respectful and know the different nuances of generational preferences, things like that are really, really good for young people to experience. And I think about, my wife does a great job with this. When we were able to, she would consistently take our kids to the local nursing home. Of course, we haven't done that in like 8 months, but she would take them there because she would say, like, it's great for them to get experience with the elderly. And I'm so thankful she does it. And actually, even still, she volunteers at a local consignment store. It's not even a consignment store, it's a secondhand store. There it's actually run mostly by elderly. And so my kids get a ton of interaction. They go there and they work with their mama and they get interactions with elderly. And I just think that that's a really big thing. Just another note here. This is one that, I can say with a pretty high level of confidence that the ACT scores, SAT scores, those are not deal breakers. So if someone just bombs their ACT, if you have a student that ever comes to and they're like, I just did terrible on my ACT, my future's ruined, it's not. Neither is a GPA. Even if someone is just, a C student, maybe even a D student, but a C student for sure, there is still plenty of opportunity for success. And I say this because I think that we should always be willing to encourage people and help them know that nothing is a dead end. Nothing's a dead end in any of these areas. So I'm trying to remember. I do have more insights. Okay, I forgot I had another slide here. This actually has a link, and I'm going to click on it here. Just a few additional thoughts on just college and additional resources too. But one thing I feel like that is worth mentioning is that the premium price for prestige is rarely worth it. So for the life of me, I could not find this study, but I know I watched a podcast on, or I heard a podcast on it not too long ago. So I'm going to do my best to try to reiterate what I've heard. But there was a really fascinating study done on Harvard graduates that compared Harvard graduates to those people who were accepted into Harvard but never attended. And what it did is it looked at their lives. I think it was either 10 years or 20 years out. I can't remember. But it compared them. It compared people who actually graduated from Harvard versus those who were accepted but never attended. And what they found was that there was no statistical difference in their success in their careers. And I found that to be fascinating. And I remember sharing this with my wife. I was like, that's astounding. That means that, essentially like Harvard really isn't providing much, if any, value. I mean, what they're doing is they're cherry picking the people who would have been successful regardless. It's really kind of interesting. So if you get into Harvard, it's really just a measurement that you are probably on a path to success. You're a very intelligent, high functioning person. So I just found that was fascinating. And I say this because, again, I think about my kids and I think, well, what if my kid actually got accepted into Yale or Harvard or Princeton, one of these Ivy League schools? I would maybe still consider sending them, because just those schools have such a high level of status that the prestige is nationally recognized. But that's not the case with all, schools that try to play up their prestige. And I'm going to click this link here real quick, because there is a link here that I think is pretty interesting. Are you still all seeing my screen? Are you seeing the web page I'm on right now? Okay, great. So I'm going to scroll down here real quick. I'm just going to share this one statistic because it was here at the bottom. So a Gallup poll, this is a few years old, from 2013, illustrated that there was a disconnect when American adults were asked how important they thought a job candidate's alma mater, so where they attended school, is to hiring managers. That they thought that 80% said that it was either very important or somewhat important, right? So people in general tend to believe that your alma mater, where you've attended school, is really important. However, when you actually ask hiring managers, the majority of them, or if you ask business leaders, said 54% of them said that it was not very important at all, or not important at all. So there's this disconnect, right? So people tend to think like, oh, if I go to a prestigious school, that's really going to elevate me. Statistically, it does. I mean, it isn't that big of a deal. It isn't that big of a deal. So let me go back here to my screen. So I just thought that statistic was pretty interesting there. Another thing worth mentioning is that a great plumber will make more than a cruddy lawyer. And so people should be focusing on what they can excel at. Your college degree is not always a guarantee that you're gonna do well in that profession. People should be thinking about, what can I excel at? Just some more insights here. And this is really specific to Central Wisconsin, but the two industries here that occupy or that employ the most amount of people are actually manufacturing and healthcare. So I think as much as we would love to see, like, maybe Wisconsin become the next tech hub, or even expand in the service industries, or cross over into being dominant in some of these other industries, that isn't where we're at right now. Right now, manufacturing and healthcare are dominant industries. And I'll send out this whole presentation, because I do have some links here, because there are some really good additional resources that exist. And Pastor Robert and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but a big one is interest inventories. You probably are all at least somewhat familiar with interest inventories. And yeah, this would bring you to a link. And I'll pull it up here, because there are a lot that are out there. And these are ones that are all free. So these are ones that are free that people can take online. And I like interest inventories, but they're not, in my opinion, they're not as valuable as good quality conversation with a person who can help guide someone. Often because they don't take into consideration like regional differences. And I mentioned this before, how I'd have people take these interest inventories and they would say to me like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a job here. And, let's say Wisconsin, I want to stay in Wisconsin, but then the interest inventory would say, well, you should be a windmill technician. And it's like, oh, well, there's like 5 of those jobs in Wisconsin. So I say that just kind of to, know that these can be a useful tool, but I wouldn't bank on someone taking an interest inventory and it really narrowing down them to the most ideal career path. But at least there's some links here. These are some quizzes. Some of them are short, some of them are long, but a really good interest inventory is the Strong's interest inventory. Oh, whoops, let me hit present here. And yeah, so Strong's interest inventory, I think you need to typically pay to do that one, or pay to get access to it. However, most colleges are able to administer that. And that kind of brings me to this point here. Any college and every college is going to have someone who is pretty skilled in helping people navigate through college career options. So leverage those. It's always no cost, because if they get you in their door, they're probably going to nudge you towards the programs that they offer. But it's still a great resource. And, most colleges are not going to be high pressure or anything like that. I know here for sure, and technical college in general, we're not. I've always told everyone who I've worked with is that, while we're technically, yes, trying to get students in our doors, we need to always be doing what's in the best interest of the person that's in front of us. And I do truly believe that most people in college settings do have that mentality. So take advantage of those people. If you have a student who's like, oh, I just have no idea what I should do. I know I want to go to college. I'm not sure what though. Maybe go with them and meet with someone at a local college, and you could just ask, say, hey, I have an undecided student that maybe could use some, college career counseling. Who can help me out with that? And oftentimes those people have different titles. Sometimes they're college counselors, they're career coaches. It really depends. But if you have a local college, they have someone who can do that. So take advantage of those people. It's always free. So I went a little bit over, but we do still have some time for questions. And if anyone had, I don't know if I haven't been keeping an eye on the comments, so I don't know if any questions popped up there, or if anyone has any thoughts.
Yeah. Why don't you pop out of the share screen, Zach, and then we can see everybody.
Yeah.
A couple people have shared a few things on there. I noticed about Christian apologetics. I found an article about forget Harvard and Stanford. It really doesn't matter. So it's a little bit like what you were talking about, but it talks about parents' expectations. And I think your lawnmower parents was really insightful, because I think a lot of them are deciding. I remember one time we had a kid that said they wanted to be a missionary, and you should have seen the look on their parents' face as they went, "You're going to raise support? You're going to go be a missionary?" And then they looked at me and they were angry at me. And I'm like, you should be excited about that. You know what I mean? But it's interesting. Parents have expectations. And I think one of the jobs we have is we've been talking about what is it that we can help them with. And that's, like you said, to think through things. And I think there's some resources here. What questions do you all have for Zach? You can unmute yourself and present a question or put it on chat. We've got about just under 20 minutes left here. And it may be you have situations that you run into that would be helpful to others, to hear.
And if I have just one additional thought, maybe if someone has a question and they want to ask it, absolutely feel free to do it. But I just wanted to say this real quick too. In terms of opportunity that I feel exists, like if someone were to come to me and just say, I truly am open to anything. What do you recommend? There is a huge opportunity right now in skilled trades. And I've always said this, even working in the skilled trades, I used to do construction. I would always say, boy, if someone just is willing to work relatively hard and show up on time and finish a job, they are going to be the cream of the crop when it comes to the skilled trades, especially the construction trades. If you have someone who you think is capable of that, they're gonna do well. They are going to do well in the construction trades. Home building, HVAC, plumbing, electrician, all of those are great professions. I just feel like I need to say that because it was top of mind for me this last week, because I still can do construction, but my wife wants a small addition built on our house. So she's been calling around to all these people to try to get quotes. And she's like, what is the deal? I can't even get a quote. And she's like, and then the one guy who did show up to check out our house, she's like, he won't even return my call. I'm like, that's the construction industry. And I remember saying to her, like, people, if any one of our kids wanted to go into construction, it would be so easy to set themselves apart, because it's an industry where there's not a lot of people who just do those basic things really well. So anyway, just a thought there.
And I think that's a great comment, Zach. I remember my son went into a field as a park and rec director, and there were no jobs. And I remember feeling bad for him. Well, then he went back and got a master's and expanded, and I think it helped him, but he went through a lot of debt for all of that. And so I often heard someone say, we need to help our students get into a field as quick as possible without spending too much debt. Now, this is not against, I won't even say the name of this college, but one of our colleges that we know of right now, if you go there, you average the cost is $43,000 with financial aid. they will end up around $23,000 a year. If you take that times 4, and this is a wonderful college, they'll get a great education. That's almost $100,000. And to start off, like you say, I mean, that's a lot of money. And so how do we help our students get into the field of choice as quick as possible with having the least amount of debt? Is that kind of the proverbial question, Zach, would you say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that because it made me think of one other thing. So I already mentioned the Modern States first year free program. So that's a great option. But another college that is doing higher ed exceptionally well, and you can write this down if you want, is Western Governors University. So again, this is going to sound kind of funny. I'm plugging another college, but I got to do it just because they're so excellent. Western Governors University, they do two things that kind of turned higher ed on their head. They focus on competency-based education. And what that means is they don't care about the seat hours. They don't care how long it takes for you to accomplish something. What they care about is you being able to demonstrate that you've learned a competency. So that is awesome. But also they charge you a flat rate for every term. So and they have 6-month terms. So if you cram 50 credits into 6 months, it's still the same cost. If you did, 5 credits, that's an amazing model for people who are really motivated. Like seriously, you can go to Western Governors and it is realistic to get a bachelor's degree done in 2 years and pay, well, that would probably be about $12,000. So, or 16, probably like 16,000. Amazing model, just an amazing model. So that's another great school. And they have a lot of, they're fully online. So if someone wants to be, a welder, they don't have that. But for someone who wants to be a teacher or work in business administration, they have a lot of good programs, marketing, those types of things. Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear from some of you. What are you dealing with? What are some of the challenges that you're facing with your students? And then maybe Zach, one other thing, what are the top fields to be going into where there's a huge need, where they get a job in a flash? I mean, I think I saw welders the other day as a huge field that needs more people. It's a hard job, but what are we dealing with? Anybody out there have some things you're dealing with?
I don't mind commenting on that. I've had a number of students who don't want to go to college, don't want to go to tech school at all. They'd rather go work in a factory, make some money, learn a skill there. Are there any stats that show that, let's say I could get into the skills trades like construction or masonry or something without going to college? Are they going to be just as successful as those that do go to a tech school?
Potentially, yeah. Especially if they earn a skilled trade that truly is a skilled trade that is where there's a credential associated with it. So like apprenticeship programs, I think apprenticeship programs are fantastic. However, if they don't have a credential that they can necessarily put on a resume, then they probably aren't going to be elevated real far, in the economy. So that's something I would encourage them to do. So if they go into manufacturing, but maybe they can, in conjunction with that, they get their millwright apprenticeship or something like that. There's great potential for that. But I'm always thinking, I always tell students, like, what can you put on a resume so that if you had to get a different job, you're going to stand out. Someone's going to know, like, okay, I can do this skill. So, or I have this skill.
In the chat, I saw that Josh had asked, do you have any recommendations, Zach, for gap year? If students are interested in doing a gap year, do you have recommendations on that?
Yeah, so I think gap years generally sound good in theory, but my recommendation is just if someone takes a gap year, they're very intentional with what they use that year for. I think a gap year just for the sake of having time off or to get into the workforce can be okay. I just would say, in general, if someone starts a gap year and they intend on going to college afterwards, they're reducing their likelihood of actually going to college. So it really depends on a person's intention. If they are, but at the same time, if they're fully undecided, I would never recommend someone to just go to college and just start taking credits. Like I've always felt like that's just a waste. Like make sure that the ideal is that every credit you take, every course you take, is actually getting you closer to earning a credential. So I know that was kind of a non-answer, but I think gap years can be valuable if someone is intentional with what they use that year for.
Zach, what if somebody is really confused? What's the best tool you'd send them to if they were looking to try to figure out? I mean, there's a lot of questions you asked. Is there one resource or tool that you'd send them to? Best one.
Yeah, boy, that's a really good one. You know, if I were to pick just one thing, it probably would be Strong's interest inventory. Like something like if someone was just completely undecided and they're like, you know, I want to try to figure this out and try to kind of quantify my interests, I guess. Strong's interest inventory is one of the better interest inventories that I've seen. And that's a pretty good place to start. But what I would do if I was that student, I would take the interest inventory, but then also go and speak with someone about it. You know, help them to get help with interpreting what it means and how it might equate to a real job.
Yeah, I've often told students, what's your dream job? I know that sounds weird. Maybe what's your dream job? And then I say, what's your reality job? And it gets them thinking on maybe a couple levels. I mean, a kid that's young might say, I want to be a basketball star. And then he might say, well, but I think my reality job might be, I want to be a teacher. That's what my grandson's saying right now, which I love. I think that's great, you know?
Yeah, that's great. It's a good point. And it's something I've recommended to people too, is, you know, it's always good to have a plan B. You know, you want plan A to happen, but sometimes reality gets in the way.
What other questions do you guys have that you're running into?
I'm curious to know, you know, my wife's a teacher. I was a school board president right when kind of the lax of deadlines or the complete axing of deadlines happened. And I heard you talk a lot about soft skills. I'm wondering, you know, we're probably about your time being at Mid-State into that kind of whole philosophy of education. Is there anything that we're seeing as trends as students come out of that system that we're starting to put things together? Are some of those soft skills really starting to lack maybe because of that? Or is there anything that's coming out as conversations around that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say in general, we are seeing that students we're seeing a trend towards a lack in soft skills. If I don't know if I could say confidently the cause of that, you know, if it is because of you know, big curriculum changes at the K-12 level. That's harder to say, but I can say that we do have students who are more than ever are lacking soft skills. And it's hard for us, even in a 2-year time span, getting them through their associate degree to really upskill them in that area. It's tough. We hear that from employers too, like that's still a common theme, is they're saying, well, even our graduates could still use work in the soft skills areas. So,
Is that because of video games and our devices, do you think?
I personally think that's a contributor. I think that's a contributor for sure. Yeah.
Do you have any specific resources to try and help develop soft skills, either as parents or as youth workers?
That's a good question. You know what? I could dig through some of my resources and potentially send some links along with this presentation. There are some things out there. Nothing off the top of my head that I can say that really stands out right at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up after this with sending you out an email with a link to this presentation in case people want to go back to it, and also with some resources that Zach thinks are helpful to you guys. We'll see what we can do on that behalf.
Yeah.
Can I ask, what would you tell someone who's graduated, who's in their freshman year of college and is thinking like, holy smokes, I messed up. This is not what I want to do.
I would say, welcome to the club, because that's most people who went to college. No, I would just assure them that they're not alone with that. There are so many students. I was one of them who initially went to college, and I was like, okay, this is not the program that I wanted at all. Pastor Rob and I were talking about that earlier. I would just assure them that, you know, while they may feel like they wasted some time, it's never too late to try to get on a path that's more ideal. if they're not sure what they want to do, I would encourage them just to hit pause. Don't just keep taking classes for the sake of taking classes. Maybe, take a semester off, try to do some discovery. If they want to enter the workforce, I think that's fine, but I wouldn't encourage them just to stay on that path just for the sake of taking, college credits. So, yeah, but they're not alone. And I would just assure them of that. Like, hey, there's a lot of, I should have had this statistic ready too, but the number of students who switch programs throughout their college life, it's staggering. I think it's upwards of 80% who switch programs. So, or the number of students who stop college too, that's an extremely high percentage. I think it's more than 50% of students who start college don't actually finish. So, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I've been discussing over the years is I look at a 4-year college and there's all these preliminary courses that people have to take, which is okay. I mean, you can get people going in that. I wish college would figure out in, like a tech school where they get you into the field right away so that you can get your skill learned so that you can start getting into the field. And I think that's the advantage. Now, the disadvantage, if you want to be in youth ministry, it's hard to get a 2-year degree these days. I did not end up with a degree. I worked in the field and figured it out by on-the-job training. And I think it is a lot harder. I've been ordained in the Free Church, but there's a high expectation of schooling from a theology standpoint in our field. But I think in many fields, like you're saying, Zach, you can learn a skill pretty quick and get into the field fairly fast, which I think is good to, really give counsel to our students in that regard.
Yep, exactly. Looks like Tony just shared a nice link on the top soft skills that employers seek. So yeah, cool. I think being aware of that, and we at the prior college I worked at, we would have, what would we call it? Like soft skills social hour, where really we would just have like a time for students to come and learn about something related to soft skills and practice it. And it was usually fun stuff like practice your handshake. It sounds kind of silly, but people don't know how to give a good handshake anymore. So, but yeah, this looks like a great list. So thanks for sharing that, Tony.
Any other questions from anyone? We're going to wrap this up in a couple minutes.
We got to teach people how to do fist bumps and elbows now because handshakes are irrelevant.
I know. Boy, I sure hope handshakes come back. It's like, man, that handshakes have been around for thousands of years. We can't abandon them. I hope they come back.
I was just going to share a comment, Rob and Zach, but, maybe this kind of been said already, but, just so helpful if we're talking to students and kind of discovering with them what they're passionate about while they're in high school or middle school, encouraging them, hey, contact a electrician, contact a person who works, as a baker, and see if you can shadow them, and spend time with them and actually find out, is this actually a passion of yours? Because, so often the kids can just see what's on the surface of that career and think, oh, cool, they make awesome treats and donuts and stuff. But, I was just talking to a young lady in our ministry who works at a bakery, and the bakers get to work at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, and work till 7 in the morning, and then sleep all day and do it again, and I said, is that what you want to do? And so it's just, it's interesting, to push them towards something like that, where they get that experience before they're spending money on their career,
Yeah, it's a great comment, Matt. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I do feel that job shadowing is really underutilized. And some high schools will have a formal job shadow program, and even some colleges, but for the most part, it's a lot of times people are willing to take on a person who will be shadowing them. So yeah, that's a great opportunity. Just go live a day in the life of someone, experience what they do. Yeah.
Let's take one final question. Anybody have anything else?
I think I have a question. Sorry if I'm interrupting. It's hard on the phone. I think my heart goes out to kids who are trying to have that college experience, and they get to a college and their program shuts down because the school's not financially stable. And I'm just wondering, with like the economy and maybe where it's going, or just, someone said earlier, like some students don't even want to go to college because of the money situation. Do you see it, wise to go to college, or is there a way that, not like living in fear, but, to understand where a school might be headed so that they're not stuck in this bad situation where they've paid money to go and then they're, the school's kind of going down?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that I have a few different thoughts, but I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. But I want to say that if a college officially shuts its doors or even eliminates a program, the one I guess safeguard there is that those students are by law not financially obligated to pay on any of their student loan debt or any of the debts that they owe to the college. So, of course, ideally, there's still lost time. I mean, that's bad. They've wasted time, but at least, hopefully they wouldn't have wasted money. But I would just encourage people to. This is another good resource. I should have mentioned this, but the Bureau of Labor Statistics actually is a good website to look at future forecasts for professions. So I think it's bls.gov, because that might give an indication as to what the forecast of any profession looks like. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it stable? Is pay increasing? It can give you actually all of those statistics. So that's another good tool in exploring, if someone is going into a profession that might be non-existent, in 4 or 5 years. So hopefully that kind of helps answer that question. But I think just doing a little bit of research in the long-term forecast of a profession is really, really helpful. And that makes me think of, I think, Rob, you asked this earlier, where are things trending right now? What's up and coming? Where would we steer someone if they wanted to get into like a really hot profession? There's a few areas that are really big, and these are probably things you've heard of too, but the IT world is big, especially, programmers, software developers. We don't see that shrinking at all in the next probably 10, 20 years. That's really big. Healthcare is still very stable. And for young people, there is, I'll just throw this out there real quick. In some of the manufacturing and skilled trades, there's a huge opportunity for young people because that workforce is aging so rapidly. Oh, I want to say like the average age of an electrician right now in America is like high 50s. So we're going to see just this huge flood, I guess, of people retiring. And it's going to be just a massive opportunity for young people, because young people aren't attracted to those things for whatever reason. They don't want to be plumbers, electricians, millwrights, whatever. But boy, is there opportunity. There will be opportunity in those areas because that workforce right now is old. It's old across all of those professions. So huge opportunity for young people for sure. It kind of makes me think, I listened to this podcast recently. Some of you have probably heard of the Art of Manliness podcast. But it's good. They have some good guests on every now and then. And they had one who was actually talking about, the trades. They had a guest on, and yeah, that's just something he mentioned, is that he always encourages people to look at where there's going to be an opportunity. And he kind of tries to take a contrarian mindset. Like, if other people are doing this, maybe I should be doing this, because that's where potentially an opportunity lies. And that's really the case right now with like a lot of the skilled trades. Not a lot of young people are gravitating towards those, but that means that there's a big opportunity there. So.
Well, I'm going to end this. I'm going to stop the recording. And then if people want to stay on for a couple of minutes and ask a few more questions, that'll be great. Thank you, Zach, for your insight. We're going to be putting out a link on this and also have some resources and contact information. Zach, in case someone wants to email you, would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I won't be able to do this until later today, but I'll get you the link of this the slide deck, and I'll also include several of those additional links, with some soft skill resources, and then the link for the first year free program in WGU, and some of those additional things that I didn't have hyperlinked. I'll include those too.